Okay. All right, I think everybody's here. I'm gonna hold this up better so that you can hear me. Let me know, just unmute your microphone and let me know if at any time that you can't hear me. So I'm Brenda. You guys might remember me from past Ag in the Classroom visits. And we are out here at the Jeff Schutjer farm. And I'm gonna turn my camera around in a minute and put it on Jeff. And you guys sent us some questions and we're actually going to, in a minute, I'm gonna be getting in the combine with Jeff's son, but I wanted you to be able to visit with Jeff a little bit too. So in a minute, we'll go through some of the questions that you asked and then I'll get in the combine. Oh, hang on. All right, I think we have everybody now. Okay. I'll get in the combine pretty soon and we'll drive through the field, but right now I'm gonna hand the microphone over to Jeff. If I ask you a question, you might want to repeat it because they won't be able to hear me once I give this to you. Okay. And hang on, let me get my camera turned around. All right.
Hi there. Can everybody see me? We'll assume that you can. I'm Jeff Schutjer, and I'm a farmer. One of the questions was, what do you raise? And I raise corn, and I raise soybeans. Right here is a soybean. Or is that a soybean? Is that a soybean? I don't think it is it? No, that's corn. I picked a few ears, so we better get those out of the soybeans. This is a soybean right here. I think you've seen these when Ag in the Classroom has come to your classes. I pulled these two out of the ground. You can see the roots here, and then the beans are in the pods. And the combine, which you'll be seeing in a moment, cuts the beans off right here. So all of these, the top part of the plant and the pods go into the combine. And once they're in the combine, they're squished and ground to knock the beans out of these pods. It just kind of opens them up and then the beans will fall out. I got them just a little open. So it's a little tough this morning, so this afternoon, so they come out pretty difficult, but we can get them out. These here were ones that were cut off. You can see how they're cut off, and they would have gone into the combine. So that's what we're doing today. We're combining soybeans. Later this week or next week, we'll be combining corn, but we're trying to get the soybeans done first while weather permits. In the background, you can see my son is working his way through a tough spot. This past spring, and you're going to find out how rough the field is in places, we installed drainage tile, which is what this black roll of plastic is. You've probably seen them along the side of the field in those great big rolls. People will set them in their field before they tile. And if you look at this tile, if Brenda can get really close, you can see that there are little slits in the tile right there and right there. That's when this is, we dig a hole, a trench, put this in the bottom of the trench about 3 to 4 feet under the surface. And then the water, when there's excess water, not the water that the crop needs, but extra water, it will percolate down and it will run into these holes. And then this tile is installed so it runs into the river or the creek or something like that. And that's what we did here, but it was a pretty big project, so it's going to be a little rough in places. So if you see that happening, or if you see Derek slowing down, you'll know what that's all about. One of the other questions was about baling. If I had cornstalk bales, well, we don't do that because I don't have cattle anymore. Back when I was probably 15 years ago, when I started farming, I had dairy cattle, and so we did do a lot of baling. So I still bale some hay, but I don't bale the corn stalks. And that kind of leads into I used to have dairy cattle, and then I had, I did do some hog chores, but other than that, right now, all that my son and I do is corn and soybeans and raise seed. So are there any other questions that I missed?
How long have you been farming?
How long have I been farming? Well, I started officially in 1980. That was the year I graduated from high school. When I was a little guy in fourth grade, well, you know what a fourth graders are. I knew I wanted to farm then, and my grades were not great. But my mom talked to my principal and my teacher, and they said, well, if we let little Jeff go home and farm a little bit when he's got all his classes caught up and has good grades, then we can do that. So little Jeff liked that, and I went home and helped, and I always had good grades after that. So, but that's what I've wanted to do since I could walk.
What's your favorite thing about farming?
One of my favorite things is that no 2 days are the same. We'll be doing one thing one day, something else the next day, and it's always different, but it's always interesting. I always kid people that the best part of my job is I have no bosses and no employees. But the thing is, it's all about what I do. I don't have to worry about the needs of, giving employees a day off or whatever. The people I work with, my son Derek and my cousin Gary, they understand how important farming is, and if it's time to go, they're ready to go. I don't have to ask them or anything like that. They appreciate the importance of it. So between them and my wife helping out, it works out pretty good. We all have the same goal in mind.
Did we tell them where we are?
Well, okay. We are from where the school is in Algona. We're probably about 12, maybe 12 miles northeast of where you are. A little further than halfway from Algona to Titonka. So that's where we farm. My son and I farm in this area, probably about 5-6 miles from one end to the other, north and south, east and west. So we're in a pretty tight group, which is nice because we don't have to be too far away from the tools when something breaks.
Okay, so speaking of that, we're not on your property.
That's correct.
But do you want to talk to them a little bit about what these are?
Okay, these are the grain bins. My son rents this farm. This is Rodney Meyer's farm. It's my wife's cousin. So what he would do is put corn in these bins when we do corn. One of them has a dryer in it. The other one's hooked together, so it automatically goes in there. And then the other bin is just a spare bin. I think this year, the corn, we're expecting it to be pretty dry, and we're going to change things around, but these will have corn in them at the end of the year when we get done. But right now, they're designated as corn. We're taking the beans into bins that are a mile south of us. And so that's where we keep our seed beans, all in one spot. So
talk to them a little bit about drying corn.
Drying corn. Well, when the corn is wet, the beans really can't be combined until they're dry enough to store, pretty much. Very few people dry beans, although it can happen. But corn is a little different animal. We can harvest corn when it's pretty wet. And if we do that, we have to dry it down to a safe storage moisture, which is about 15%. A lot of the corn coming out of the field now is pretty close to that moisture. There's some that would probably be a little higher and would have to be dried, but we're going to have a good start of getting corn and just being able to put it in the bin. But on those years when it's rainy and the crop doesn't mature as fast, we'll end up drying a lot of corn, and it's a great way to get the corn out of the field before something bad happens or the weather turns on you and we get snow. We can get the corn when it's standing nicely, put it in the bin, turn the fan and use a little LP to heat the air, just like a clothes dryer would. And then it dries the corn and automatically puts it into the storage bin, cools it off, and it'll be good till spring.
Did you talk a little bit about how many acres you have?
Okay, the acres question. Between my son and I, we farm, I think, around 2,000 acres. He's got about a little more than a fourth of that, and I have about 3/4 of that. As I get older, he'll be farming more of it, and I'll be farming less of it because he's doing more of the work now, and I just kind of stand around and do nothing sometimes. But in addition to that, we also we farm a few acres for a neighbor, custom farm, and that's where Gary helps out. he had been working for that neighbor, so he helps us during the fall work. So it's a couple thousand acres, and not the biggest, not the smallest, kind of an average size farm, I think, especially if that farm makes all of its income from farming, which is kind of where we're at.
And how long does it take you to harvest usually?
Well, soybeans, I think if everything went right and we could work every day, we could get it done in 7 to 8 days. I think we've been in it for a while longer because the beans have not matured as quickly as we'd want to. So we've been doing some and waiting a little and doing some more. Then it rains a little bit and that puts us behind a little more. Corn is probably 2 weeks minimum if everything goes right. But then sometimes you get rainy days, or the elevator won't take corn for a day or two, or you got to move corn. I think this year that the corn harvest will go fairly quickly. The bean harvest is going to be a little slower than average, but it's a good harvest. As dry as it's been this year, the yields are pretty good, and we're always grateful for that. And the prices are pretty decent, so it's going to be a good year for farmers, I believe.
When you say the prices are decent, what do you mean? The
prices that you'd receive for your corn or your soybeans are pretty good. I think last year we thought they were pretty good, and it was like $9 a bushel for soybeans. Well, now they're 11, close to 12. So you can see if you had something, if I could buy your notebook from you for $9, and this year I'd offer you 12, you see that how much better that would be. That you get the little extra money.
So when you say that's what you get, is that at the co-op? Is it at the
yes, we haul our
ethanol plant?
Okay, and the question is, where do we get this? We get ours from several sources. We haul all of our corn goes directly to the end user, and we have a couple sources. One is where they grind feed for pigs. Another place we go to where they make ethanol out of it. We've hauled there, and another place is a chicken farm. So it just depends who wants it the most, and we will take it there. And of course, if the ethanol plant's a little further away, so they have to pay a little more because it costs money to haul it further. But we take whichever bid is the best, and that's where we'll haul our grain on a given day. Soybeans, some of it is seed beans, and that would go, they come and pick that up, and it goes to Renwick, where they put it in a bag, and we plant them next year. The other beans, we've just been taken to the local co-op in Titonka, and we just dump them there, and they treat them as commercial beans, and they haul them to the processor for us. So we just deliver it to the elevator because it's easier for us. It's not that many bushels. So
is it different to grow seed beans than not seed beans?
Yeah, seed beans, we have to make sure that the combine is cleaned out, so all the kernels are out of it. This pail here it's what I dumped out of the grain wagon to make sure that there wasn't any off-type beans. The color of the little spot on the bean, I think you can see right there by my thumb. See that little spot? If they're all the same color, this is a dark one. Now that one looks a little different. The people who really know their beans will know the difference between the ones with a black spot or the brown spot. That's an indication that they're a different variety. We want to keep our varieties clean. So that's the biggest thing with seed beans, is making sure that you don't cross-contaminate and get two different kinds of seeds in there. And then there's other issues trying to keep the weeds out. That's not a huge issue. We're fighting corn this year. I don't know how that's going to go. Because we pattern tiled this, we were not able to spray a second time for volunteer corn. So there's some corn in it. We'll see if that, I'm afraid that's going to be a problem.
So volunteer corn means corn just randomly growing in a soybean.
That's correct. It was corn last year, and apparently an ear fell off, or several ears, of course, fall off. Then it grew this year, and after it rained, it started growing again, and we tried to spray it with a chemical that would kill it, and it kind of killed it, but it didn't completely kill it. It grew, and it put an ear on, so now we have kernels in the corn, and that's a problem. Not for the beans that are going to the elevator. That's generally not a problem, but it will be for seed.
Okay.
So,
all right, are we ready?
I think we are. I can quick show you how the header works, and then you can get in with Derek and and he can show you how it really works. Right here is the sickle. This piece goes back and forth, and it cuts the beans against the guard right here. But these are really sharp. You don't want to be dragging your finger along there, because then it'll cut you too. After these beans are cut, they will flip back. The reel will push them back, tip them over on these belts, and these belts rotate, and they shoot all the beans to the center where they're shot into the combine. And this is something new to us this year. My son just bought this header, but it also has these tubes on it where it blows the beans, tends to help blow them back into the combine. So that's kind of something new for us. He says it works pretty good. He really likes the belt system over the auger system we had, but it's been working really good. You'll see how neat that they feed into the combine when you ride along with it. I think one of the questions was what comes out of the back of a combine, and you can kind of see it just pieces of stem. You can see where the pods used to be on here, right about where my finger is. There used to be pods attached there, so it goes through the combine and it grinds those pods open. It actually ground these off. I'm not sure if that was the separator that ground them off, or if the straw chopper on the very back of the combine that takes a straw and cuts it again and throws it out evenly, so it doesn't plug anything up when I try to work it next spring. But that's what comes through the combine. They could be longer than this. I think this was cut by the straw chopper, but they try to get pieces like this so that they don't plug anything, like when we're trying to cultivate next spring.
Because this all just stays in the field.
Yes. This, you can see parts of pods, like where my thumb is. That's what's left of a pod, and the rest of it is stems and other stuff that's been chopped up and ground and distributed through the back of the combine.
Okay. Hard to grasp how big this is.
This is 35 feet, which nowadays there's a lot of 40-foot heads. 40, I don't know what I could tell you 40 feet is. It's 40 feet, but this one's 35, and it brings in a lot of material. The first combine I had was 13 feet, and we didn't go very fast with that either. So we get a lot more done today.
Quite a change.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
All right, are we ready?
Yes.
Sure. All right, hand that up. You want to say goodbye in case you don't see them again?
Okay, well, goodbye. I remember you guys from Farm Safety Camp, and I know I'm not wearing my glowing colors, but it works a lot better because I'm a messy person. I get grease all over me, so it's way better that I wear dark colors so that my wife isn't mad about all the grease on my shirt. So, but you guys stay safe. If you get a chance riding a combine this year, take advantage of that because it's a lot of fun. And farmers, by and large, love to give people a ride in their combine. So with that, we'll see you later. You guys have fun, and Derek will give you a good ride.
Thanks. Stand that up. Great.
Got that?
I'll help you right. All right. I'm going to do this without getting my head. Right. Did I get it?
Yes.
Okay. See if I can get you in here.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, I'm gonna hand the microphone off in a minute, but I wanted you guys to see. You can see that we're backing up, and we're gonna head that way. And your dad said these are mile-long rows.
Yep. We're just a little bit short of that. They're about 3/4 of a mile now to where we're at.
So it takes me about 45 minutes to do a full round if they're mile long roads. So it takes a little bit of time, mainly because it's really rough out here on this field.
Yeah, your dad was talking about the tiling and that's part of the
Yes.
problem.
Yeah, that's the project. We had a project this spring that put in a tile underground in order to drain the soil when it gets too wet and saturated. Otherwise, if it's too wet and saturated, then we're not able to farm it in the spring.
So tell the kids before everybody gets nervous, what's that coming up out of the,
So that's dust.
Yeah.
So the combine takes in a lot of dry material, and once all the material moves through, then the dust comes out of it. It'll come out the front of the combine. But once I start getting beans in the head, then the dust will kind of go away from the front. It'll go out the back.
so it is not smoke.
Nope, it is not smoke. I
That
hope
would be
not.
real bad. Okay, so I'm gonna let you see this for a few minutes and then you guys can see.
Since I'm almost full, then I'll just dump right away.
Okay, tractor and grain cart just pulled up right next to us and we're still moving. And you can see that the tractor is also. So Derek had just gotten back from doing a row and he said he was almost full. So we're gonna go ahead and dump right now.
The grain cart holds about 700 bushels, which is just short of being 2 loads from the combine. The combine holds about 350, maybe 400 bushels. So then we should be able to get 2 dumps on the grain cart if I absolutely had to. But in soybeans, there's a lot less bushels coming off per acre. So you only have to dump 1 time typically, and then he goes and dumps his grain cart load into the bin.
Oh, it goes directly, he takes it from here to the bin.
Correct.
So there's no going into a semi between here and there.
No. Sometimes that's how we do it, but sometimes if we have a farm that's near the bin site, then we will go ahead and dump directly into the bin, which is the most economical and money-saving, time-saving way. And then it only requires maybe 2 people working rather than 3 to 4 people working.
So who's driving the tractor?
So driving the tractor is my dad's cousin Gary, and he helps every spring and fall with all of our field work, and it helps us get our crops out of the field in time. Otherwise, it'd be way too much work for Dad and I to do alone, and not enough people for the machines. So Gary helps, and then a lot of times my mom will help if we need a 4th person to help around the farm doing other jobs.
So how old is this combine?
So this combine is 2014. And the way they measure combines isn't by mileage like cars. They measure them in engine hours. And this one has about 1,500 hours on it total. So every year we put approximately 250 to 300 hours on the machine, which is all the time I spend in the machine. I'm about the only person that drives it.
How long have you had this combine?
We have had this combine, I think, 6 seasons, maybe. This would be maybe a 5th or 6th season with the combine. So it wasn't brand new when we got it, and that's typically how we buy equipment. We don't buy brand new equipment, mainly because it's really big and expensive, and our operation isn't quite as big to need new equipment every year. So we buy used equipment and run them for a good portion of its life, and then once we put enough use to it, then we get something different.
Now you just went from driving in a straight line to going diagonal. Oh,
Yes.
Are you just,
so
tell me why.
So then to shorten up the rows so then you can see more and then we can talk more, I have GPS in the combine that allows me to track every single pass across the whole field. So I can cut into the field anywhere I want to, and I can make a pass in the field and know exactly where I am because I'm running off of a GPS satellite. And that's how I steer the machine through the field. I cut not with the rows, but at an angle, which allows me to cut maybe a little bit better. And then I can also use my auto steer so I don't have to drive with my hands. My hands are free, so I can either radio to Gary or Dad, or I can pay attention to dumping on the grain cart, or I can also mess with some of the settings in the machine if it's not operating correctly. I can then make changes to it to say thresh the beans the way I want them done, or to be able to speed up the machine so then I can drive faster potentially.
So I'm gonna just let you watch the beans going into the head a little bit.
And this head is new to us this year. It's called a draper, which means that it doesn't have an auger to bring the crop to the middle of the machine. It has belts, and the belts are just like a treadmill belt that you would run on. They sit in front of on the front of the head, and the crops get cut by giant scissors right in front of the head, and they fall onto those belts, and the belts are spinning at a really rapid speed, and they drop the grain right in front of the combine, and then it's taken in by the combine, and in turn it gets threshed and rolled around until the beans fall out, and then those beans go into the hopper behind us, and all of the material like the stalks and the pods go out the back of the machine and get chopped up and spread out for organic material next year that the corn will use.
So do you always rotate your crops? Do you do corn? Will you do corn in this field next year, or?
Yes, so we rotate all of our crops, corn and soybeans every year. And so this whole field, this 200-acre field, will be all corn next year, and then we'll harvest corn next fall.
And why do farmers do that?
The main reason is that it takes a little bit less, fewer inputs to grow corn behind soybeans, and the corn seems to grow better behind soybeans, and it's more predictable and takes less resources and other energy to grow that corn crop.
And when you talk about inputs, you mean?
Fertilizers, micronutrients, chemicals. Some of the chemicals cost more to do for soybeans, but when it comes to the fertilizer and fertility part of it, it costs a lot more to do corn on corn than corn behind soybeans.
And soybeans put nutrients in the soil and corn takes it out?
They both
nutrients?
certain nutrients,
Yeah.
so they work well together in tandem. But they both take out nutrients. They use different nutrients and different amounts of nutrients. Okay. Yes.
Can you, okay, I'm gonna see if I can get a shot. So that's the hopper.
Correct.
And I didn't get a shot of that while we were going, but you can see the sky above there. So when the soybeans come in the head, then they end up, that's where they're held until he puts his auger out and dumps into the grain cart or the semi.
Correct.
So can you talk about this a little bit and what
So-
that does?
This is my computer monitor system that runs the machine. It tells me all the information I need to know. It also has a camera in the hopper, so I know when the grain tank is full and about to run over, then I can stop and not run any of the crop over. It also is connected to the internet, and will send information into what we call our cloud, kind of like an iCloud or another computer, which then I can access all of our information from not only this year, but any year we've used this data machine on my phone and on my computer. So I can look back and take information from this year, last year, and as far back as we documented this information, so I could compare every year to year and try and get better at what we're doing, what hybrids we like, what practices we like, and what not to do, things that cost us, time and effort and money that didn't pay back in the end. So it's kind of a tool. It's an expensive tool, but if used properly, it can really help the efficiency of the farm.
So what's your favorite part of farming?
My favorite part of farming is probably working with my dad and family, and with my dad's cousin Gary. It's it's a working with family is a lot of fun because, you know, we get to make jokes to each other and sit down and eat together, and then we also get to work hard together, and it's a lot of fun to do that.
Tell them a little bit about your history. When you graduated from high school,
I graduated from high school, and then I went to Simpson College for 4 years and got a bachelor's degree unrelated to agriculture. And at that point, I decided that I knew I didn't want to do what I went to college for, and I came home to farm because I knew that was my long-term passion. And my grandfather had given me an opportunity to farm his farms, and then also his brother gave me an opportunity to farm their farms. So I took advantage of that and worked with them, and that's where I'm at now, married and have a 3-month-old child. So.
okay, I think I'm going to turn my camera around here. I think we're about out of time. You guys need to probably be heading home. I think it's about 3:10. So thank you, Derek.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you for letting us come into your classroom today, and we hope you enjoyed it. If you guys, I think we got the majority of your questions answered, but if you have any other questions, just be sure and email me and we will get those answered for you. So thank you for joining us and have a good rest of the day.